What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. I'm excited to show you how I use this console to get that professional sound. And
Have you ever done exactly what was right to protect the ones you love, only to have the whole world call you a fool? Today's story is a powerful reminder that true wisdom doesn't always wear a crown. And sometimes the quietest preparations, along with the loyalty of an old friend, are the only things standing between life and absolute devastation. Welcome to Pine Haven. It was the kind of idyllic mountain town you see on a postcard. Crisp, cool air, wide wraparound porches, and towering, magnificent ponderosa pines that grew so wonderfully close to the houses, their green needles would brush right against the bedroom window panes. To the folks who lived there, those trees were a symbol of absolute peace. But to Clara, they looked like a fuse waiting to be lit. Clara was 68 years old, a retired forest ranger who had seen the raw, unforgiving side of nature more times than she cared to count. She had recently moved into a modest cabin at the edge of town, seeking a quiet chapter in her life. By her side, as always, was Duke. Duke was a retired police K9, a majestic German shepherd with a coat the color of autumn leaves and a soft, distinguished dusting of gray around his muzzle. He walked with a slight limp now, but his eyes were still as sharp as a newly honed blade. He watched over Clara like it was the only job left in the world that mattered. While her neighbors spent their weekends planting ornamental shrubs and hanging delicate flower baskets, Clara spent hers with a heavy chainsaw and a pair of worn leather gloves. She ruthlessly cut back the beautiful dry brush. She chopped down the magnificent pines that sat within 30 feet of her roof. She even climbed a ladder to cover her attic vents with heavy-duty metal mesh. To the untrained eye, she was turning her picturesque mountain retreat into a barren, ugly dirt lot. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. The tension finally boiled over at the monthly Homeowners Association meeting. Bill, the town's unofficial patriarch and HOA president, stood up, adjusting his expensive silver watch. He looked across the room at Clara with a mixture of pity and utter disdain. "Clara," Bill announced, his voice booming, echoing across the community hall, "we all appreciate that you want to feel safe, but this isn't the wild frontier anymore. You're becoming an eyesore. Those trees took decades to grow, and you're hacking them down like a paranoid old woman. It really needs to stop." The room fell dead silent. A few people snickered in the back. Emily, a young single mother sitting near the door, looked down at her hands. She was too intimidated by Bill to speak up, even though her 7-year-old boy, Sammy, absolutely adored playing fetch with Duke. Clara didn't raise her voice. She didn't blush. She simply looked at Bill with the calm, steady gaze of a woman who knew exactly what the wind could carry. She reached down, her weathered hand gently resting on Duke's broad, steady head. The K9 leaned into her touch, letting out a soft, low rumble of unwavering support. "The trees are beautiful, Bill," Clara said softly, her voice carrying an unshakable weight. "But wood burns, and when the wind decides to change its mind, the fire won't care how pretty your landscaping looks." She turned and walked out of the hall, Duke matching her pace, step for steady step. She left them to their quiet laughter. But deep down under the darkening mountain sky, she knew the dry season was coming. The weeks that followed the town meeting felt longer than usual. Summer in Pine Haven usually meant neighborhood barbecues, iced tea on the front porch, and kids riding their bikes until the streetlights flickered on. But for Clara, it meant a quiet, unspoken isolation. When she walked down Main Street to pick up her mail, conversations would suddenly drop to a whisper. People would nod politely, of course, but they kept their distance. They looked at her, not with anger, but with that polite, devastating pity reserved for folks they thought had simply lost their minds. Only little Sammy didn't care about the town gossip. He was 7, with a mop of unruly brown hair and a heart too big for his chest. One Tuesday afternoon, while Clara was sweeping the dust off her barren front porch, Sammy broke away from his mother's grip. He ran straight to the edge of Clara's property, his small hands reaching out. "Hi, Duke," he called out, his voice bright and clear. The old German shepherd's ears immediately perked up. Duke trotted over, his tail delivering a slow, rhythmic thump against the dry earth. He pressed his graying muzzle right into Sammy's hands, letting the boy scratch that sweet spot just behind his ears. Clara smiled, leaning heavily on her broom. "He's been waiting for you all day, Sammy," she said, her voice warm and steady. But Emily hurried over, her face flushed with anxiety. She glanced nervously down the street, terrified that Bill or one of the HOA board members might be watching them fraternize with the town outcasts. "Come on, Sammy, we have to go," she whispered, urgently tugging at the boy's sleeve. "I'm sorry, Clara, we just have errands to run." Clara nodded slowly, her eyes filled with gentle understanding. "Stay safe, Emily. The air is getting terribly dry." Emily didn't answer. She just grabbed her son's hand and hurried away. By late September, the breathtaking beauty of Pine Haven began to feel like a trap. The autumn rains never came. The lush underbrush turned to brittle, golden kindling. And then the Santa Ana winds arrived. Out west, they call them the devil winds. They don't just blow, they roar. They roll down from the high desert canyons, bringing a suffocating, bone-dry heat that makes your skin feel tight and your throat ache. The wind howled through the towering ponderosa pines, making the massive trunks sway and groan like old wooden ships caught in a violent storm. Duke felt it before Clara did. The retired police K9 stopped eating. For 2 straight days, he paced the length of the yard. He wouldn't lie down to rest on his favorite rug. Instead, he stood rigidly facing the eastern ridge, his nose lifted high into the wind, letting out a low, continuous whine that sent a cold shiver straight down Clara's spine. Animals know, they always know. Clara didn't wait for an emergency siren. She didn't bother turning on the local news. She went straight to work. She dragged heavy wool blankets out of the hall closet and submerged them in the bathtub. She filled every pitcher, every bucket, and every cooking pot with tap water. She placed heavy-duty flashlights, a first aid kit, and Duke's thick leather leash right by the reinforced steel door of her basement. That evening, the sky didn't turn its usual soft, romantic purple. It turned a sickly, bruised orange. Clara stood on her porch, the hot wind whipping her gray hair across her face. She looked down the hill at Bill's magnificent 3-story home, completely engulfed by the dense, beautiful pine trees he was so incredibly proud of. "Lord, help them," she whispered into the howling wind. Beside her, Duke let out one final sharp bark toward the mountains. The fresh smell of cedar and pine in the air was suddenly replaced by the faint, bitter scent of ash. It happened exactly at midnight. There was no warning, no blaring emergency sirens, just a low, terrifying rumble that sounded like a massive freight train tearing through the valley. Clara stood by her reinforced window, her hands pressed flat against the warm glass. The horizon was no longer a bruised orange. It was violently, blindingly red. The Santa Ana winds were driving a wall of fire straight into Pine Haven. Embers the size of glowing golf balls shot through the dark air like horizontal rain. Down the hill, Bill's pride and joy, those magnificent, towering ponderosa pines, ignited in a matter of seconds. They didn't just burn. They exploded like Roman candles in the dry, suffocating heat. And then the flying embers found exactly what Clara had feared. They got sucked right into the unprotected attic vents of the neighboring houses. Within minutes, beautiful cedar roofs were caving in. The idyllic mountain town had suddenly become an absolute waking nightmare. 2 streets over, Emily woke up coughing violently. The air in her hallway was already a thick, poisonous gray. "Sammy!" she screamed, her voice cracking as she dropped to her knees and crawled toward his bedroom. The heat was unbearable. The front porch was fully engulfed in roaring flames, licking viciously at the window panes. She found her little boy huddled in the far corner of his room, clutching his knees to his chest, completely paralyzed by terror. "Mommy, I can't breathe," he whimpered, his eyes wide and streaming with tears. Emily pulled him close, her heart pounding furiously out of her chest. She looked wildly around the room. There was no way out. The smoke was too thick. The fire was simply too close. She held Sammy tight, burying her face in his hair, waiting for the end. Back at the edge of town, Clara's house stood completely untouched. The creeping fire reached the edge of her cleared dirt lot, found absolutely nothing to consume, and was forced to move around it. Her home was an island of safety in a sea of destruction. But Duke wasn't resting. The retired K9 was frantic. He paced back and forth, scratching violently at the heavy steel front door. He let out a sharp, commanding, desperate bark. He looked back at Clara, his amber eyes burning with an intense, undeniable urgency. Clara knew that look. It was the look of a dog who still had a job to do. With trembling hands, she unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the heavy door open. Duke bolted out into the apocalyptic, glowing dark without a single moment of hesitation. He ran with the muscle memory of his younger days, through the blinding, choking smoke, past abandoned, burning cars. He navigated by pure instinct in the scent he remembered so clearly from the edge of the fence line. He found Emily's house. The front door had already burned off its hinges. Duke charged inside, dropping low to the floor where the oxygen was slightly clearer. He found them in the back bedroom. Emily was nearly unconscious, still trying to shield her son. Duke let out a booming bark that shook the floorboards. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed the thick fabric of Sammy's pajama shirt in his strong, gentle jaws and gave a firm, authoritative tug. Emily, gasping for air, opened her eyes and saw the magnificent canine. A sudden, miraculous surge of adrenaline pushed her to her feet. "Go, Sammy! Follow Duke!" she cried out. With the dog leading the way, his large body acting as a guide through the suffocating maze of smoke, they crawled and stumbled toward the back door. Duke never let go. When Sammy stumbled, the dog pulled harder, dragging the boy through the intense, blinding heat. They burst out into the chaotic night. Duke guided them through the burning streets, step by agonizing step, until they finally crossed the property line onto Clara's barren, ugly, life-saving dirt lot. Clara was waiting on the porch. She rushed forward with heavy, soaking wet blankets, wrapping them tightly around Emily and Sammy, and pulled them all into the cool, safe, breathable air of her fortified home. By the time the sun finally rose, the roaring beast had moved on. But the morning light didn't bring any comfort. It only revealed the devastating, undeniable truth. Pine Haven, the picturesque, idyllic mountain town, was gone. A thick, choking layer of gray ash covered the ground like dirty snow. There were no birds singing, no gentle morning breeze rustling through the leaves. The magnificent ponderosa pines were nothing but blackened, smoldering toothpicks, stabbing upward into a pale, smoky sky. Down the hill, the sprawling three-story mansion that belonged to Bill, the absolute pride of the homeowners association, was completely leveled. Nothing remained but a solitary brick chimney and the charred, twisted frame of a luxury SUV sitting in the driveway. But up on the edge of town, standing stubbornly in the middle of a barren, ugly dirt lot, Clara's modest cabin remained completely untouched. Her heavy metal mesh vents had kept out the flying embers. Her ruthless 50-foot clearance had starved the fire of its fuel. It was an island of survival in a sea of absolute ruin. Inside her home, the living room looked like a makeshift triage center. Emily was fast asleep on the worn floral sofa, her arms wrapped fiercely around little Sammy. 7 other neighbors, people who had fled into the night with nothing but the clothes on their backs, were huddled under Clara's damp wool blankets. They were alive. They were safe. Clara stepped out onto her front porch, holding a steaming mug of black coffee. The morning air was bitterly cold now. Duke was lying faithfully by the front door, his paws completely black with soot, his chest rising and falling in a deep, exhausted rhythm. He had earned his rest. Then she saw him. Walking slowly up the middle of the devastated street was a lone, broken figure. His shoulders were slumped. His clothes were torn and heavily stained with ash. The expensive silver watch, the symbol of his status, was gone. It was Bill. He stopped at the edge of Clara's property line, the exact same line he had stood behind just a few months ago when he had publicly laughed at her. He stared at the sturdy cabin. Then he looked at Clara. There was no arrogance left in his eyes, no pride, only a hollow, echoing grief. He had lost absolutely everything: his home, his pristine neighborhood, his untouchable ego. It had all turned to ash in a matter of hours. Slowly, with heavy, trembling steps, Bill walked across the dirt yard. When he reached the wooden steps of the porch, his legs finally gave out. He dropped heavily to his knees in the dust. He didn't say a word at first. He just lowered his head and began to weep. It was a raw, gut-wrenching sound that carried through the quiet, smoking morning. Duke lifted his heavy head. The old K9 didn't growl. He didn't hold a grudge. He simply stood up, limped slowly down the wooden steps, and pressed his large, warm head firmly against Bill's shaking chest. Bill wrapped his arms around the dog's thick neck, burying his soot-stained face in Duke's fur, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry," Bill choked out, his voice cracking violently. "Clara, I am so sorry. I was a fool. I was a stubborn, arrogant fool." Clara didn't smile. She didn't gloat, and she certainly didn't remind him that she was right. She simply walked down the steps, her worn boots crunching softly against the dry earth. She reached out and placed her hand gently on Bill's trembling shoulder. "Drink this," she said softly, pressing the warm mug of coffee into his dirty, shaking hands. Bill looked up, tears cutting clean tracks down his soot-covered face. How did you know?" he whispered. Clara looked out over the smoldering ruins of the valley, her eyes filled with a quiet, ancient sorrow. "Fire doesn't respect beauty, Bill," she said gently, her voice steady in the morning chill. "It doesn't care about our pride or how much money we spend on landscaping. It only respects one thing: preparation." 6 months passed. The heavy winter rains had finally come to Pine Haven. They washed away the thick, suffocating gray ash, leaving behind a soil that was rich, dark, and ready to heal. Spring was pushing its way through the scars of the mountain. The town was rebuilding, but if you walked down Main Street now, things looked profoundly different. You didn't see magnificent, towering pines brushing right up against the new wooden frames. You didn't see dry, decorative brush lining the front porches. Instead, you saw wide, clear spaces. You saw metal mesh vents on the roofs. You saw what the firemen call defensible space. And the man leading the charge for all these new safety codes? It was Bill. He didn't wear an expensive silver watch anymore. He wore scuffed work boots and heavy leather gloves. Most weekends, you could find him out in the community, hauling away branches and helping the new families clear out the dangerous underbrush. He had traded his arrogance for a quiet, humble purpose. As for Clara and Duke, they still lived in the same sturdy, safe cabin on the edge of town, but they were never isolated anymore. Every afternoon, the moment the yellow school bus dropped him off, little Sammy would run straight up the dirt path to Clara's house. He'd sit on the warm wooden porch, doing his homework or reading his books, while Duke rested his heavy, graying muzzle squarely in the boy's lap. The old K9's limp was a little more pronounced these days, a lingering reminder of that terrible night. But his amber eyes, they were as bright and watchful as ever. He wasn't just Clara's dog anymore. He was the undisputed guardian of Pine Haven. The town had learned the hardest lesson a community could ever learn. They realized that a beautiful, lush facade can sometimes be a deadly illusion. They learned that the people we occasionally mock for being too cautious or too traditional are often the only ones brave enough to see the storm coming. Pride, you see, is highly flammable. It burns up in an instant. But humility, careful preparation, and the unwavering, courageous loyalty of a good K9, those are the things that survive the fire. So, my friend, let me ask you this. Is there a Clara in your life right now? Someone whose quiet wisdom you might be ignoring simply because it isn't what you want to hear? Or perhaps you are the Clara, standing your ground, doing the right thing to protect your family, even when the rest of the world just doesn't understand. If this story touched your heart today, please let me know in the comments below. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts. And if you'd like to sit on the porch with me for more stories just like this, stories of courage, resilience, and the beautiful, quiet moments that define our lives, please hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay safe, stay wise, and hold your loved ones close.